So in this video we're going to look at how to create a working drawing using Solidworks. First thing I suppose is to have a look at what a working drawing actually is. So here's one on screen. First thing to look at is the three views of the table on the left hand side. So this is a little table project. So up top left we've got a plan view of the table, what the table looks like from above. Here we've got a front view of the table, what it looks like from front view, and over on the right hand side what the table looks like from the right hand side. Now in this particular product the front view and the right hand side are quite similar, but if you look carefully there are differences there in measurements, etc. Usually in a working drawing then you would give a pictorial view, a 3D drawing, so that the person who's looking at the drawing gets a more realistic view of the overall product. So what we're looking at then is those three views on the left hand side. Now they must be in this position: plan view, front view, side view, and it's a side view from the right hand side. Okay, down in the right hand corner then this little logo, so that little logo must be there. That's third angle projection, and that's telling the person who's looking at your drawing that you have got those three views in those three positions. And here of course then, as I said, we've got a 3D view. So that's initially what the drawing layout should look at. So let's get into a few other areas of what should be entailed in a working drawing. So we're looking for measurements, dimensions, etc. And those measurements should be laid out so that the 800 in this example sits in the middle of this dimension line, and the dimension line is showing the start and the stop of that measurement. So for this particular view you can see that the plan view of that table is 800 millimeters long, and all measurements are in millimeters. Here we can see that that little symbol is a diameter symbol, and it's telling me the diameter of that circle is 140 millimeters. And again the 140 is sitting in the middle of that line that it's sitting on. It's not sitting over to the left or over to the right. One more look down here, 730, and again the 730 is not sitting over here or over here. It's sitting nicely in the middle of that line, and that's telling us that it's 730 from the bottom of the table just to the start of the tabletop section. Okay, so we want to get dimensions on there, and we don't want to clutter too many dimensions. So plan view, front view and right hand view all with their measurements on, so that somebody can take this as a plan drawing and start to make the product. Okay, below the three views there then you'll see there's a parts table. So what we've got over on the right hand side here, sorry, the left hand side, is the part number. Okay, now what this particular drawing is missing is little bubbles coming off. So let's say that was part number 1. That should be labelled as part number 1. Okay, and let's say that was part number 2. That should be labelled as part number 2, so that we can look across the table. We can see the part number, we can see the part of the project that they are, we can see how many of them there are for those products, what they're made from, and what the dimensions, the thickness, the length and the width of those particular parts are. So while this is a good example of the working drawing, it is missing those particular labels on the 3D drawing. And you do put these little balloon labels that I've drawn in red on the 3D drawing. You don't add them on to the 2D drawing, because that clutters the 2D drawing up a little bit too much. Okay, if we just zoom down into the bottom right hand corner, so I've already talked about the fact that we've got a little logo here which means third angle projection, and then what we've got now in here is the name of the drawing, so it's a working drawing of the complete table design. We've got the person who has drawn that, and then in here we've got the scale of this particular drawing. So that's 1 to 10. So what that person's telling me is that this particular drawing is 1/10 of normal full size. So if I go across to the left hand side, 730, in real life that table is 730 millimeters, but on this particular drawing it's 1/10 of that. So if I was to measure that on this drawing, that would only be 73 millimeters. Okay, so this is very useful then for somebody who's making the product. They've got this working drawing in front of them. It's done to a suitable scale. If for some reason there's measurements that they can't work out because they're not labelled, they can use a ruler and they can measure. Okay. So with all those areas in mind, and remember we should have the balloons on there to tell us what the part numbers are, this pretty much is a good scale drawing. It's got everything it should have to help the person make it, and it's got everything it should have to score marks in this particular part of the folder.
So I'm going to talk you through how to do a Solidworks drawing, a working drawing. So a working drawing is where we look at a front view, a plan view and a side view, and we see those three views in 2 dimensions. So what I'd like you to look at then is the Firefly pages. So we'll go to the Technology and Design Firefly pages, and we'll scroll down until we get to the Solidworks section of Technology and Design. So we're into Solidworks, and then we scroll down past the Solidworks codes, and we're looking for 2 things. We're looking for this Word document, which is a step-by-step guide on how to do a working drawing, and then down below that there is an A3 working drawing template. So that's what we're looking you to download. So you can open up that template and save that onto your My Documents or wherever you're keeping all your Solidworks drawings. Okay, so once you open up that page, we're just letting that load up. So once you load up that page, you'll see that it's got a border running all the way around it, and in the bottom right hand corner it's got a space for the title of your project, your name, and if I zoom in, then you see it's also got a scale. At the minute that scale is 1 to 2. That's half scale, but we probably might need to change that. And then just above that then there's a little logo, which is orthographic drawing logo, and it's also 3rd angle. So that means we're going to draw our working drawing in 3rd angle. Okay, so I've just maximized that page. So what we want to do is we want to bring our 3D model in here now, and we want to look at it in 2D views. So if I go to View Layout and Model View, and I browse to find my drawing that I have done. So I'm wanting to bring the assembled version in, the fully assembled, there we are, assembled box. And what you see, it brings it in there. Now it doesn't give us too much information about it, it's just the outline of the box. So here's a couple of little tricks. If I go over to the left hand side, I've got preview. Okay, and now I get to see my box as a preview. I also get to see it from different angles. So you can see that's a side view, turned into a funny position obviously. That's an upside down version of the box. The other side view. And there we've got the box from the front. So by clicking this little menu, you get to see it from different angles. And by putting the preview button on, you get to see actually what it looks like. So that is the front of our box there. Now, I can go down below that and then it gives me a plan view. So that's what the box looks like from above. If I go above, I get a view of what the box looks like from the bottom. So I want my plan view to originally be positioned down there. So I click, and if I go across here, I get what my box looks like from the right hand side. Okay, so I will click that and position that there. If I go off at an angle, I also get to see what my box looks like in 3D. If I go off to different angles, I get to see it from different 3D views. So I sort of just quite like that one, so I'll click that and I'll put that there. I hit escape because I finished doing all those. This 3D view is completely detached from the others, so I'll position it over there. The right hand view actually then gets dragged across to the right hand side, and the plan view gets dragged up. Okay, so that now means that those three drawings are in the right place. For some reason that little icon there has moved across. I'll just put it back in the right position. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so now I've got my plan view, my front view, and my right hand side view in the right positions, and I've got a 3D view. Next thing is to work out what is the right scale for them. So if I want to find out about the scale of my drawings, I click on the drawing. You see it's gone orange around the outside, which means I've selected it. And then scroll down on the left hand side and you'll see that my scale is 1 to 2. Now, for me that has worked out okay because they fit nicely on the page, but you can fiddle with other scales. So for example, if I went 1 to 1, you'd see that's too big. They all are on top of each other on the page. And if I go 1 to 5, you see that's too small on the page. So for my particular drawing, 1 to 2 is just the right size. But everybody's project is going to be different, so therefore everybody's got to work out what scale works for you. The 3D drawing, you can have that as a different scale. So if I go to use custom scale down here, I could have that as 1 to 5 because it's not really connected the way the two-dimensional drawings are. So please keep the two-dimensional drawings all the same scale, but if you're having trouble fitting the 3D one in, you can make it a little bit smaller if you need, but I'm quite happy with 1 to 2 on that. Well, now that I know the scale that works, I should really go down here and do any editing I need to. Now, it defaults to 1 to 2, which is going to work well for me, but I'm just going to show you how to edit this little box. So right click, edit sheet format. Now what that does, that disappears my drawing, that's okay, but it allows me to access the title. So if I double click there, we'll just put in a label for this. And then double click name, and let's get a name in there. And then we can also double click and change the scale if we need to. I don't need to change my scale, so I'm not going to, but I'm just showing you that that is an option if you need to. Once we've got all our box edited the way we want, we fit the scale again onto the screen, right click, and we go back to edit sheet, and that now brings our drawing back, and as you can see it keeps our title in the bottom right hand corner and our name and our scale. So now that we're happy with the way the box is positioned on the page and we've got our title box, we're now ready to start adding some sizes on. So we're going to put sizes onto the top drawing first, the plan view. Now we want the measurements to be able to be handed on to somebody else who can make this box. So let's just zoom in a little bit here. Annotation in the top left hand corner and smart dimension, a little bit like you used previously when you were building your box. So I've got two ways of doing this. I can click that orange line and take it out, and you can see it's telling me that that is 300 millimeters long. It knows that because it's been built like that in Solidworks. Same here, we can take this side out, that's 130. And a little tip is, it's always a good idea not to have your measurements too close or on top of your drawing. They should always sit out a little bit from the drawing, as that keeps things quite nice and neat. I always like to use those little purple lines actually, as I think that's a nice guideline. Now that 130 tells me the length of from there to there. Now that's the side part, but it doesn't add on this little measurement from the outside of the box to the outside of the box. So I'll do that over on this side. So I'm going to click that side, click, from there, click, and take that out now. You can see on that side 142, and that's because we're adding on the little 6mm joint on that side and the 6mm joint on that side. So I can use the Smart Dimension tool to start putting on measurements. Okay, I think what I'll also put on here is the distance from there. So I click there, and then I click there, and that tells me the distance in there is 132. Distance from there to there, also 132. Another good little point is your measurement shouldn't be, the 132 shouldn't be away over to either the right hand side or the left hand side. Looks really neat, and it's good practice if the 132 sits on the middle of the line. So click that where you want it positioned. Okay, so I could go on and do a lot of measurements on there, which I'm not going to at the minute. We'll just move on to the other view. Now, what I could do here is I could put on there that box is 300 long in that particular position. But we already know that because we have done that up at the top of the drawing, 300. So it'd be a good idea not to just keep putting on the same measurements, otherwise you're just cluttering your drawing up. So if the person who's making it, whether it be you or somebody else, and you can see clearly that that's 300mm long, don't clutter your drawing up by again putting another 300mm long measurement on. It's the job of the manufacturer to work that out. Okay, so we can still do other measurements because we need to know the height. Oh, sorry. So we need to know the height. So if we click from top to bottom, we see the height is 133. We can put in the length of the pole in this view, 176mm. We can put in the height from here to here. And again, I'm not going to keep cluttering that up and have you watching a long video, just somebody putting measurements on. But you can see how you can start to build up the different measurements. What I will do is I'll put in this little bar. I think I'll zoom in there because it was just getting a little bit fiddly. So we'll just put in that bar from there. Again, it's orange when I've selected it. And you can see it gives me a diameter 12, and that's because that's a bar, diameter 12. Okay, one other little feature then we can do over here, click and drag, and you see that tells me R40, radius 40. So radiuses can go on at a 45-degree angle, or they can go on flat and parallel with the bottom of the page, or flat and parallel with the right hand side of the page. So I think in this particular case I'll just put it on there. That fits in there quite nicely. And again then we can go on and we can add in whatever measurements we feel we need to. Okay. So you would obviously finish that off and put all the measurements in that you feel are required for somebody to be able to know all the measurements and make your box. One thing you might have noticed is I tried to leave this area free, and if you could do that as well, please, because in here we'll be putting a table of all the different materials that we're using and the thickness of all the different materials that we're using. So please try and keep that area free as you position your drawing and you put your measurements on. So for now, I just want to make sure I save that. So File, Save As, and we want to make sure we've changed the name of that. So I'm going to save that into my documents where I've been saving all my other bits and pieces. And we're going to make that A3 working drawing and then your name. And keep that saved where you are keeping all your Solidworks saved together, and that keeps everything nice and tidy in the right place.